How's it going, everybody? We welcome you to episode 3 of Hawai'i Football Now. Jordan Hunter back with you as we dive into Hawaii's road trip to Corvallis, Oregon, a defeat at the hands of the Oregon State Beavers. We'll preview this coming week's matchup, the conference opener against San Jose State as well. Hunter, let's dive right into it. Kind of before we get into the opening drive, though, I was kind of curious, especially now that we can't attend games, right? And we'll get into that a little bit later in this episode as well. What's kind of your normal way to take in games, right? You were part of the program for so many years. You went through that game day experience. What is game day like for you now as a fan, as a member of the media, sort of taking it in and covering these games, watching these games as a civilian, if you will?
It's funny you bring that up. I don't feel like I've necessarily found a groove for that because fresh out of playing football, I remember riding in the car away from Aloha Stadium and turning on ESPN Honolulu for the first time and hearing people calling in to talk about the game. That was my first time ever hearing that. And at the time, people had plenty of things to say about my teammates, which is what fueled me to actually call in the radio station to offer my take, defend my boys, and which has led me to talking with you tonight. But and then in light of that too, with the last couple of years, what's happened with COVID and everything, it's hard to get any sort of new rhythm going when season starts. So other than the podcast that I've had the pleasure of co-hosting for, this will be the second year now, I'm still going to use the word weird because it doesn't feel normal. It's still like, oh, okay, yeah, we've got football back again. And without being in person, it's hard to get a feeling like we're actually back in season. I'm sure many of our listeners, the season ticket holders, feel the exact same way.
Yeah, it's kind of this weird holding pattern, right? And kind of, yeah, I'm with you, though. There are a few things with higher entertainment value than the fan's voice after a University of Hawaii football game. There is nothing like tuning in to Gary and the crew as they take those phone calls. It is top notch, no doubt about it. Win, lose, draw, whatever it is, it always brings out high entertainment value.
And like stirring the pot, man.
Oh yeah. Those are the diehards, right? Those are the diehards, no doubt about it. Definitely. All right, Hunter, let's dive into the opening drive. Slow start again for the University of Hawaii. Down 21-0 after the first quarter in Corvallis, ended up being a 45-27 final score in the loss to the Beavers. They were down 24-3 in week 0 against UCLA. We know what they did against Portland State, right? We saw them get out to that 28-0 lead. So it's kind of in feast or famine when it comes to these opening 15 minutes. So what do you attribute these slow starts to for the University of Hawaii? Against UCLA, it never really got better. Against Oregon State, it did, you could argue, as they end up scoring 27 over the last 3 quarters, cut it to 11 a couple of different times. But what do you make of the slow starts here for the Rainbow Warriors?
Well, both of those 2 slow starts, I have to tip my cap to the fact that we played Pac-12 schools. So the first one obviously was against UCLA, that they've proven themselves against a serious SEC school in LSU. I had high hopes for this past week against Oregon State, especially in light of what we did in 2019. They came here, we handled them. Phenomenal win for our program that night. Looking at the beginning of this game, similarly to kind of what we saw in UCLA, their offensive line set the tone on our defense. They were kind of able to run over us at will. And then some of the shorter passes that Oregon State was able to make over the field, it didn't look like we were tackling with a lot of purpose, not a lot of hats on the football. They were able to break tackles without much effort. I even saw it in a post today from Coach Todd Graham taking full responsibility for the defense. I mean, this is 2 games now with an average 41.3 points allowed as a defense. That is not good, Jordan. Any way you slice it, you cannot win football games if you're letting up 40 points from the other team.
Yeah, it's something that has to improve, no doubt about it. Getting into some of the numbers, you bring up what they have allowed over the course of those 3 games. That includes, right, the 35 that they allowed against Portland State in the second game of the season. But we mentioned down 21-0 after the first quarter, 24-7 at halftime against Oregon State. They played much better, did Hawaii, in that third quarter in particular, pulled within 11 twice at 31-20 late in the third quarter, traded touchdowns again in that 5-minute period or so as they were able to cut it to 38-27 with 10:28 left in the ball game. And then Oregon State kind of an insurance touchdown late in the fourth quarter to stretch that one out and put that one away. You mentioned some of the scoring totals, but you look at the yards gained as well for Oregon State, out rushing Hawaii, 256 yards on the ground. That's 6.1 yards per rush for Oregon State. B.J. Baylor was all over the place, 18 carries, 171 yards for Oregon State. Hawaii outpassed, if you will. Oregon State threw for 366 yards to just 302 for Oregon State, but we mentioned the damage that the Beavers did on the ground. Just 5 punts total in the ball game. There was a lot of offense to go around, particularly in the final three quarters. But I kind of wanted to start on the defensive side of the football, Hunter,
sure,
and kind of ask you to get a little deeper into that. 475 yards per game allowed by this defense to go along with the over 40 points allowed that you pointed out. They're giving up almost 200 yards a game on the ground, 192.3 yards per game on the ground against Oregon State. We mentioned what B.J. Baylor did. Basically 10 drives, 7 of those resulted in points for Oregon State. That's a 70% clip. And that's going to hurt you a lot when you can't force turnovers, right? They forced just the one turnover. They've only forced 5 so far through the first 3 games, and 4 of those came against Portland State. And so if you're going to give up points, you're going to give up yards, you got to be able to take away the football. They haven't really done either so far. What do you attribute this to? What do you see that maybe can be a bright spot that they can turn this thing around?
Man, you hit it right on the head, Jordan, with regards to turnovers. If you are going to let the team get down the field the way that they are, at least try to cause some fumbles, maybe tip a ball and get an interception here or there. 5 isn't too bad through the first 3 games, but when our offense isn't getting it done, it just needs to improve. One thing I did notice. And again, I think our boys are playing really hard right now. I think they're doing everything that they can. And, with Coach Graham taking a lot of the responsibility, I think they were trying some different things on the defensive side that just weren't working. And that happens sometimes. If you don't have the right scheme, there's really nothing you can do from a player's perspective. But their receiving core, Oregon State's, looked like they had at least a 2-step jump on our DBs pretty much every time down the field. If there was a little bit better quarterback play, in my opinion, from Oregon State, no doubt in my mind they would have put 60 on the board against us, because there were many times that some of the receivers had to come back to the football. Balls that should have been on the sideline were sometimes 10 yards inside into the field, and slowing those receivers' momentum down. So I don't know if that means changing it up in the secondary, giving a different look with the safeties, spreading it out a little bit more, because teams know that that we're not going to pressure the quarterback much. Like, I think that's kind of the verdict is out on that. We have not been getting a lot of hats to the opposing quarterbacks, and so I think with that, if our linebackers are preoccupied with stopping the run, they're going to take some shots down the field. So, man, I'm more of an offensive guy. I know that our defense is in trouble, and we need to figure something out fast. I don't know if it's disguising and then doing some more blitz packages, disguising cover 0 and bringing the house at different times. Man, it's a delicate thing. But in football, I have to look at my side of the football as well, because you have to score points. And the only reason that we went down 24-3 is because we weren't scoring at all, or 21-0, because the offense wasn't getting it done either. So we can't look just at the defense. If they're not getting proper rest between possessions, that can play a big factor as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that, Hunter. Yeah, a lot of it's interconnected, right? I think that's appropriate to point out. And availability has been a little bit of an issue as well. We've obviously with some injuries, Jonah Laulu was unavailable for this Oregon State game. Guy like Darius Musa, who was playing basically with a cast on his hand against Portland State, got that off. But then he gets disqualified for a targeting penalty. He'll be out for the first half against San Jose State. Mitch missed much of the second half when Hawaii was needing some of those big stops as they crept further and further back into this ball game. But I'm with you. It's kind of one of those things, right? You can't be porous against the run while also giving up huge pass plays. You got to find a way to at least shore up one aspect of that. And the other thing that for this Hawaii team that I think to go along with, maybe the lack of turnovers against the Pac-12 opponents sandwiched around that 4 turnover game against Portland State, they've also been very susceptible to the big play. And is that just the fact that they maybe have to sell out at different times? You pointed out, hey, look, sometimes they got to disguise some cover zero looks, commit more linebackers to the run, commit more linebackers in that pass rush because they haven't been able to get home with a 4-man rush or something like that. Exactly. Is that an indication of that where they're having to maybe expose themselves a little bit more to cover up for some of those deficiencies and opening themselves up, or is it a little something else that we've seen these big plays come time and time again? I mean, you look at some of those touchdown runs, there was like a 40-yard touchdown or a 66-yard touchdown run and a 30-yard touchdown run from Oregon State. We saw some big plays against Portland State in the passing game. So it's been both on the ground and in the air.
Yeah. The battle between the offensive line and the defensive line literally controls the game. If our defensive line is getting handled, any Division I quarterback can sit back there with all the time in the world and pick your team apart, which that was my observation watching this Oregon State game. That guy had plenty of time back there. Beautiful pocket created pretty much every time he stepped back there. And we talked about it last week, Jordan. Going into this week, they were having some quarterback issues. Oregon State was, and that was one thing that we kind of called for, was to try to get some pressure on this guy, and that would be a great strategy for us. And we did not get it done, and I think we paid the price dearly for that. But then, too, with Darius going down, I was really impressed with how Corey came in and forced that fumble for us. Anytime when you lose the backbone of your defense, especially with a leader like Darius going down with a targeting call, you look for not just the next man up, but who's the next leader out there, who's going to be the next shot caller for your wolf pack out there. And so I think Eugene Ford's doing a good job back there. We just need those plays, especially starting into conference play this next week. I want to jump over to offensive as well, but I have to say that this is pretty much every year for Hawaii, because a lot of times we're playing a Pac-12 school, we're playing a Big Ten schools, and then someone like Portland State coming out here to fill our schedule, not just fill somebody else's. Usually when week 3, week 4, depending on what it looks like, this is when the year really starts. This is what we really get a chance to see who we are, what we're made of. We're not playing against older brother or little brother. We're playing against the kid next door. Let's see what we're made of right now. So I'm fighting to be optimistic for our defense. Just being completely honest, it hasn't looked good so far, but we also need the offense to do their part as well.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the quarterback shuffling for Oregon State. They seemingly have found their guy, at least for now. Chance Nolan finishes over 300 yards, 21 of 29 through the air, finished with a couple of touchdowns as well. Was a little dangerous scrambling as well with his feet. Just kind of one final thought for me on the defensive side of football. I know Todd Graham, when he took over this job, he talked about the history of Hawaii defense, right? And it wasn't always necessarily shut down. Hey, we're only giving up 10 points a game or something like that. But there was the physicality, making people feel you after you play them. And I don't know if we've quite seen that just yet. And we'll see if that evolves over the course of this 2021 season. Offense, you mentioned it, Hunter, and we do want to try to transition over to that side of the football. We mentioned no points in the first quarter, scored 27 from the second quarter on. I mean, if you're averaging, somewhere around 8, 9, 10 points a quarter, you're going to be in ball games, even if your defense is giving up some points. But they were putting up the bagel in the first quarter. Chevin Cordero, 24 of 49 through the air, 366 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did throw 2 picks at 48 yards on the ground. Calvin Turner, his best game of the season, you would argue. Rushed it 10 times, much more than I think we have seen through the first 2 weeks. Scored 2 touchdowns on the ground, just 21 total rushing yards, had 7 catches, over 100 yards in the receiving game. Scored a touchdown there as well. Hunter, I'm kind of curious from your standpoint, what changed? What did you see that was different after that first quarter that allowed Hawaii to settle into this rhythm and put some points on the board?
Honestly, I was just impressed with a little more aggression on the play calling side of things. Started seeing some of those reverses, even some of those reverse passes. That may not be what we're running day in, day out. It may not be our offensive bread and butter, but it just shows that our coaches are trying to get something happening on the offensive side, especially with Turner being such a versatile athlete, coming from his previous school where he was a quarterback. He even let one rip to Jared Smart on the sideline. Unfortunately, he was pushed out of bounds, but just kind of seeing plays like that, as not just as a former player, but as a fan, that gets me excited. It shows they're willing to do whatever it takes to get into the end zone. With that, I think it gives our offensive line a little bit of a break whenever you kind of throw these unusual looks at the defense, because these guys that are coming really hard around the edges don't know what to do when a reverse hits and they weren't expecting it. Because that was one thing I observed from our offense was primarily from our tackles, how easily their DNs were able to get around our perimeter, and we weren't able to keep them home. Chevin was trying to combat that with getting deeper in his drop back. Just being honest, Jordan, 24 of 49 is not going to cut it. Getting plenty of opportunities to throw the ball, but that's less than 50% right there. And for a Mountain West offense, we have to be able to move the ball in the air a little better. One of the interceptions, the one further down the field that was caught near the end zone, I'm okay with that one. They're trying to take a shot. But the slant throw to Turner, no excuse there. I mean, the linebacker's right in the middle of the field. People may not be talking about it right now, but I think depending on how Chev plays this week against San Jose, they might be looking at Braden pretty soon, just with our inability to pass the ball effectively. And again, I started to see a little bit more courage from the offensive play calling and what they were willing to do. And so in that same vein, I could see them, depending on how we do against San Jose, looking to give Braden a chance because we're 1-2, and we gotta turn this season around before it's too late.
Yeah, Braden Schrager, of course, the backup quarterback, the true freshman out of Texas, who had a decorated high school career, and we know the coaches are very high on. I love that you pointed out, right, the aggressiveness of the offense, being a little more assertive, kind of trying to force the issue a little bit. And that included getting Calvin Turner the football in a variety of different ways. I think something that a lot of people had been calling for. I'm a big fan of it. I think, hey, that guy is special. Get him the ball as much as possible in any way you can possibly find. And that includes handing him the football, allowing him to be that versatile triple threat, if you will, receiving, catching it, running it, as well as maybe throwing the football every so often, serving as that wildcat quarterback. We saw some of those heavy packages, right, with Foye there in there at fullback. But also there is the fact that, hey, if he is going to be such a focal point of your offense, a guy like Dede Hunter may only get 3 carries, like we saw in that ball game. He did have 5 catches for 83 yards in that ball game, and I think is showing a very real ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, which is a huge weapon to have for this offense. Is there such a thing as too much of a reliance on Calvin Turner? I think through the first, especially that UCLA game, people were clamoring to get him the ball more, and now they are doing so. But is there a balance to be struck there? Nick Marner seems to be the go-to wideout again, an over 100-yard receiving game, had a touchdown there. So what's the balance for you, Hunter, in terms of getting Calvin Turner the football, but also utilizing some of these other weapons where it's not just so predictable that, hey, Seven's going to touch it every time?
Yeah, I mean, you got to go with what's working, and I don't think it's an exaggeration that Calvin Turner is the most talented player on our entire team. He's our juggernaut, and he can, anytime that he is out in the open field and he can reverse it, kind of like a Reggie Bush vintage style. Very few people can do that at the Division I level. So we're very fortunate to have a guy like that. But yeah, a few performances I'm really surprised about. One of them particularly with Nick Marner. I was down on the field a lot whenever he first came in, and he was very skinny, not very physical, couldn't really beat a jam, and he's put a lot of work in to be able to put up the numbers. That doesn't happen by accident. It just doesn't happen at the Division I level like that. And the one catch where he dove over the middle and caught that ball, I think it was like a 20-yard throw or something like that in the late in the third quarter. Crazy impressive catch right there for a big-bodied guy like that. One guy that we've kind of haven't been seeing a lot from is Jared Smart. I would love to see them incorporate him a little bit more. He was fantastic for us last year. Really fantastic hands, really strong, really mentally tough too. From guys that I talk to on the team right now, they look to him as a leader. He kind of has that sort of an impact on the offensive side, and he only had one catch this game. So I would love for them to continue to try to incorporate him a little bit more with being on the other side from Nick Marner. So yeah, those are just some thoughts, because we need to tighten the screws a little bit, because we got to outscore people in conference play. That's just what you have to do.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I think Jared Smart could be a nice compliment to Nick Marner, as those two guys have seemingly been the two key wideouts, Aaron Cephas in there as well. And I think, trying to find that consistency is going to be key. 13-game regular season. We basically hit the quarter pole 3 games in. Is there a big takeaway for you? I mean, I hear you saying, right, it's looking like we're going to have to outscore teams for the University of Hawaii. And I don't think that's any secret. But is that sort of your big takeaway from the first 3 games, or is there something else out there?
Yeah, I talking with some of my buddies that used to play football for UH. We still have a hard time recognizing an identity for what this team is, who they are as an offense, what we can kind of expect. Hey, like I really appreciate the effort from this coaching staff that we were just talking about, with some of the trickery and imaginative play calling, even some of the stuff with going for 2 kind of early in the game. I was a little surprised at that. Just on our second score, for those that are listening, I think we were down 31-13, and we elected to go for 2 after that second score. So they are trying some interesting things, but just some of the play calling, it's hard to really know what this run and gun offensive scheme is that Coach Graham has kind of coined. Trying to figure out what that looks like for us going forward, and if I am San Jose coming off a bye week, really well rested, all I'm thinking about is getting pressure on Shevin and trying to make him evade the pocket. Because again, it doesn't look good for us whenever Shevin is our leading rusher. It just doesn't. That was kind of the name of the game for our team last year. Shevin not only led our team in passing, but he led our team in rushing last year too. unless you've got a Michael Vick or a Lamar Jackson situation on your hands where you can look to this guy to score touchdowns with his feet, we need to get the ball out of his hands a little quicker. So, yeah, I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on that, Jordan?
I'm with you. I think it's a team that's still trying to find itself, if you will. It's still a team trying to find its identity. And I think, at this point, tighten the screws, I think, is a perfect way to put it, right? They've got to clean up some things. They got to be better on offense. They've got to be better on defense, even though the recipe may be, hey, we're going to have to put up near 40 points a game and win some of these shootouts. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see. And this is going to be a real good test coming up with San Jose State, the defending conference champs, coming to Ching to take on the University of Hawaii in the conference opener for both of those teams. So we'll take a quick pause. We'll come back and we'll dive into the Spartans. We'll take a look at that matchup in the second half of this third edition of Hawai'i Football Now.
This is Hawai'i Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, Hunter. So we look at this San Jose State team coming in. They are 1-1 on the season, blew out Southern Utah in a week 0 game and then lost 30-7 at the Coliseum against USC in week 1. They were only down 13-7 in the third quarter, and they are coming off a bye, as you mentioned, and that could loom huge here as they get the University of Hawaii on Oahu for the second year in a row. You remember last season when they went 7-0 in Mountain West play, beat Boise State in the Mountain West title game, won their first ever Mountain West Conference championship, lost to Ball State in the Arizona Bowl, ended up finishing the season 7-1. One of those 7 wins, of course, was the 35-24 victory after racing out to a 21-0 lead, another slow start for the University of Hawaii last year, of course, at Aloha Stadium. Remember, that game was moved from San Jose due to COVID restrictions in Santa Clara County, and so the rare comeback for a conference game 2 years in a row. In that game, San Jose State running for 288 yards. And of course, a lot of people will remember San Jose State's media accounts, social media accounts, I should say, trolling Hawaii with some fervor after that victory. And I think still a little bit of a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, including those within the program. And so, Hunter, before we kind of get into the Spartans in particular, kind of interested to hear your experiences transitioning from non-conference now into conference games. What is it? A different mindset? Is it a different feel in prep, in practice, in film study? What are you what can you share with us in terms of the transition going from these opportunity games, if you will, against Pac-12 opponents, but now you dive into the nitty-gritty starting your conference slate?
Yeah, no, it definitely changes. These teams we see year in, year out. A lot of times when we play different teams that come in here, we go there. We may have to adjust to something obscure that they're doing on offense. When Air Force comes here, we know that we're going to see some sort of a veer option, sort of a situation, really, really intelligent offensive line. Whenever we play New Mexico, they always have kind of a similar style of running pitch and throw, kind of a various style of offense. And so you have history with these teams. A lot of times you know guys on the other team because of them being in conference, and you remember numbers, you remember positions. A lot of times, if guys from Hawaii don't have the opportunity to go into the Power 5, they'll go to other Mountain West schools. And so I know for a lot of my teammates, they played high school ball with a lot of guys, like my good friend Stephen Lakalaka. His brother Ronley played for San Diego State for a bunch of years, and we had to play that guy. And so there is kind of a closer connection to conference play than there is obviously when we play other schools, with exception to BYU, because as you know, we are not fans of the Cougars at all. So so there's a little bit of that. And with San Jose specifically, it wasn't that long ago that we had them circled on our calendars as this is going to be a win. Not a very well-organized program. I want to say maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, there was even rumors that they were going to fold as a football program. Complete, just horrible crap show over there, if you will. And so with that, we never really thought of them much. I know, like you look at every game the same. You go out and you try to play as hard as you can, but San Jose was not a threat to us in our schedule. We looked to them as kind of a momentum builder for the rest of the year. That is not the case anymore. San Jose is a serious team now. They won the Mountain West this last year. They are definitely no slouch. They have a great coach. They have great recruiting. It's literally a complete transformation of a program. I'm surprised they're not getting more national attention from what has transpired in just the last few years. So no slouch coming in here. We're going to need to put our best foot forward in this game.
Yeah, and you got to give credit to Brent Brennan, right? This is his 5th year in charge, and what he has done to turn this program around. Basically 16-31 in his 5 years, but you look at his record the last couple, including that 7-1 2020 campaign where they were vagabonds, right? They played home games at Aloha Stadium, the one game, but they also finished the season playing in Vegas. That was their home away from home, and then playing the Mountain West Conference Championship game there at Sam Boyd Stadium. He has done a tremendous job, and I'm with you. I think they are almost undersold on a national from a national standpoint, and Brent Brennan has got to be on the radar of a lot of Power 5 programs with what he has been able to do. And it's always kind of interesting, the San Jose program, right? They have sort of cycled not quite every 10 years, but just shy of that, right? Whether it was Dick Tomey really turning the program around, Mike McIntyre, what he did, remember, before he left to go take the Colorado job, and now what Brent Brennan has done. They got a win at Arkansas a couple of years ago in 2019, right? The first ever for San Jose State against an SEC opponent. So they have done really good things. And so he has brought in, right, it was Josh Love before, now it's Nick Starkel, who is a guy who played at Arkansas and Texas A&M prior to transferring to San Jose. They've got a couple of really good running backs in Tyler Stevens and Kyrie Robinson. You remember both of them going over 110 yards last year in the victory over the University of Hawaii. Isaiah Hamilton has kind of been their go-to receiver, at least their most productive receiver statistically through the first 2 games for this squad. And then they've got a menace on the defensive line in Cade Hall. He is the preseason Mountain West Conference Defensive Player of the Year. This is a good team, Hunter. This is a really stiff test for the University of Hawaii. What do you think it's going to take to knock off the Spartans as they come to town, a team that is picked in the preseason poll to finish 2nd in the West Division to Nevada?
I mean, I think it's going to take everything we have on the defensive side. We need the most spirit-filled, aggressive defense that we can muster. Offensively, we need to be excellent in everything that we do. And then on top of that, if we're able to go the distance with these guys and it be a hard-fought, close game, we have to be situationally perfect. We have to win the not only the turnover ratio but also the penalty comparison. We cannot afford false starts, holding little nicks like that when you're going up against a good program, and one that I would say has the momentum right now. I would even give them the nod that they're better than us, even though this is our team, and I have so much love for our boys. They're a real team now. So if we're gonna go and defend Pride Rock, we have to be great to beat them.
And of course, the game kicking off at 6:30 on Saturday night, back home on campus at the Ching Athletic Complex. Be sure to tune into ESPN Honolulu. Bobby, John, and Mark will be on the call once again for you. It will be another empty stadium as the governor basically releasing a statement as we record this Tuesday evening, Hunter. It's been picked up by all the local media. First saw it, Stephen Saya, the Honolulu Star Advertiser, had a little bit of a report on it. And basically we knew that it wasn't going to be open to the general public, if you will, but there was an effort by the University of Hawaii, by a group of family members and close friends, that was looking to have 250 people attend. Again, family and friends, close family and friends. The group said they were going to all be vaccinated. They were going to wear masks. They were going to sit distance, but that has been denied by the governor and his office. And so for a second consecutive home game, the only people in the attendance will be staff, will be game day personnel, as well as the media covering the ball game. And I know for the University of Hawaii, I don't think the hopes were high that they were going to get fans in the stands, but I think there was at least a little bit of hope that they were going to be able to get the 250 or so family and friends in there. And that is, a tough pill to swallow, as this Hawaii team now going into their second of just 6 home games this year in front of an empty stadium.
Yes, tough pill to swallow, to say the least, Jordan. For those that are listening out there, friends, family of the program, season ticket holders, myself, Jordan, ESPN Honolulu, we see you. We're with this, in this with you guys. All of us live, breathe, bleed green of the Hawai'i football program. We want to be there as well. I wasn't able to attend the first game, the first ever game on our campus, and it is so deflating, Jordan, week in, week out, seeing everybody, literally everyone on the mainland, from Power 5 to NAIA to Division 2 to Division 3 to other Mountain West schools, not just having some attendance, but having 100% full stadiums. I mean, it's infuriating. There's no other word for it. When our guys deserve to have fans there, they absolutely deserve to have their family there. Yeah, I'm trying to stay light, but in light of this situation, my truth is that I'm not happy with the decision as well. I know that we're trying to be safe, but if the proper precautions are done, then let's have an ounce of courage. Let's just have an ounce of courage and step forward, because we're going to be in this forever if we don't. Sooner or later, I feel like an ounce of leadership and courageousness needs to be taken.
Yeah, and I think the frustration is understandable, right? And I completely understand. I know the situation we are in when it comes to ICU beds in our hospitals and where we're at in the unique standpoint of being an island state and all that comes with that. My hope is that the powers that be look at these situations on the mainland that as far as we know have been successful at staging these events, these large attended events, and look at what they've done and bring that here. And once we get the go ahead, whether it's in a couple of weeks for the next home game, or if it's going to be the full 30 days as the window is on Oahu, that we take that information and we apply it and make sure that this works, because it has been far too long.
Teams that were leading the charge with this, the Big Ten, along with the Pac-12, were some of the leading institutions on how to handle COVID-19 protocol with fans, with students, with contact tracing. And with those same schools, they are finding a way to do it. So I'm with you. I'm optimistic that before the end of this year, we ought to be able to figure something out. So.
Yeah, and again, so the no home fans for the second home game of the season. It is the Mountain West Conference opener against San Jose State. Again, a little later time. It is nationally televised. Another opportunity on FS1 and about as late a kickoff as Hawaii will have, all season long and really for a number of years here. So if you're on the East Coast and you're one of those insomniacs trying to pass the Hawaii test, you're going to go late into Sunday morning. You might as well just stay on up for Sunday football kickoffs when it comes to the NFL. Real quick, as we close out our overtime session here with Hunter and I, just a little poo-poo platter of tidbits as we head out. Hunter, did you want to start us off this week, or you want me to go ahead?
Sure. I'll jump into an idea with some of the unique transitions from conferences to conferences. It was quite interesting to see Texas get a spoonful of their own medicine of, hey, you may not quite be at the SEC level. They played Arkansas this past week and got absolutely handled by them. So it was an interesting sort of backhand to their, feeling like they are at that level. It was quite interesting to kind of see that storyline play out, because them and Oklahoma feeling like they are bigger and better than the Big 12. And my family, of course, lives in Oklahoma, so that's a little bit closer to home for me. But what did you have, Jordan?
Yeah, mine, man, it was a rough weekend for University of Hawaii, right, with the Rainbow Warriors falling on the road, and then you had some high-profile alums, man. It just I hope things get turned around at Navy. You heard all the crazy news, right? Ivan Jasper, the former Rainbow Warrior. The reports were almost immediately after the midshipmen lost against Air Force 23-3. Their longtime athletic director, Chet Gladchuk, fired him, relieved him of his duties. Ivan Jasper's been the offensive coordinator there for 14 years. Right, Navy is like the epitome of consistency. Kenny Niumatalolo has been the head coach for 14 years. He was on that staff prior. We know his ties to Hawaii. Ivan Jasper, same thing. He was on the staff, and then he took over the offensive coordinator duties once Kenny got promoted there. And the AD's been there since 2001. Like, the special teams coordinator has been there for 20 years. Like, it is a staff that does not turn over very often. And to see sort of this tumult there is just kind of jarring, and reminder that college football is so fickle in a lot of ways. Luckily, it sounds like Kenny Niumatalolo, who didn't have a say in the initial firing, kind of was able to advocate for Ivan Jasper, and they are retaining him on the staff, but he is basically being demoted from offensive coordinator and play caller to solely the quarterback's coach. Niumatalolo is going to take over the play calling. They've only scored 10 points in 2 games, 2 losses, Marshall and Air Force. This a year after they went 3-7 and kind of took a step back. But again, this has been one of the most consistently winning programs in the country, and to see all of this is a little weird. And then you got Billy Ray Stutzman, local boy, right, University of Hawaii product, who was an assistant coach there the last 3 years, posting on social media that he has basically been relieved of his duties after not being granted a medical exemption from the COVID-19 mandate put forth by the Naval Academy, and not here to necessarily debate the merits of all of that or anything. And Billy was very classy in his exit, basically wishing the Naval Academy all the best, and took the high road there. But, just the situation. So it was just so weird to read all of this about Navy, where it's like, Navy's the one place where it's not supposed to be up in the air and all of this kind of things. And of course, obviously all the ties to Hawaii. It was just one of those, it's like, man, that's like the one program you can count on with just doing what they do like clockwork, right? So it just shows you the nature of college football.
Totally. Whenever we play them, their level of professionalism from top to bottom is always top notch, and a lot of that has to do with those guys are enlisted. So, I mean, they're military men. So it's a different code. It's a different level of expectations. But you're exactly right. I'd be curious if their AD outranks all of their coaches in terms of military status. Because, it was very kind of flying off the handle with the way they went about some of that stuff this past weekend.
Yeah, we'll see if they can get it turned around. All right, that'll kind of do it for us on this 3rd edition of Hawai'i Football Now. Hunter, this has been a lot of fun. We'll do it again next week. We'll recap the San Jose State victory. We'll see if Hawaii can start off conference play with a victory, and then look ahead in 2 weeks where they take a trip to Las Cruces and step back out of conference in what is first of 2 matchups against New Mexico State this year. Much more of that to come next week. For Hunter, I'm Jordan. We'll see you guys next week on Hawai'i Football Now. Enjoy the weekend.
You've been listening to Hawai'i Football Now with Jordan Helle and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.